We've worked out all the kinks. All the problems are solved. We may as well go to the show. When I was getting ready to go to the car show, I attached the knockoff GoPro with the magnetic mount to the side of the truck, just like I normally do. And before that, I had started recording. I made sure it was actually recording, and then I put it on the truck, and then the recording immediately stopped, unbeknownst to me. So I was hoping to have, the multiple perspectives, the inside the cab view and then the outside the cab view, just like I did on my previous videos. But unfortunately, I just don't have that.
Your wipers work? We might get some rain. Don't worry about it. You stick your head out the window, right?
Yeah, they work.
Okay. You ready?
Yep. So we took off, and I was able to speed up just fine. We got out onto the road. I was able to accelerate, and the truck was running absolutely fine. I figured we had solved all of our issues, and we were just going to have a nice easy ride to the show. We get the 2-3 miles into town, and then I start slowing down when we get into town. and I don't do a correct 3-2 downshift. Now that 3-2 downshift, I can go up gears very easily in the truck, and I can go from 4 to 3 just fine, but that 3-2 downshift always seems to give me problems. You know, that 3-2 downshift is where I ended up blowing the head gasket on the vehicle because I shifted too early. I was going too fast, so the RPMs raised up and the head gasket blew. That 3-2 downshift, I also, the synchronizers are especially messed up for that, which is, I mean, because the transmission is so old and the synchronizers are bad, I double clutch shift for all the gears, but that 3-2 is the hardest one to get it into. Also, I think the, is that the shift forks? Basically, it's sometimes hard. You especially saw this in the last video as I was driving back from the mechanic shop. I messed up the 3-2 downshift both times because I accidentally went from 3 back into 4 instead of going into second. And that's just because of the way the transmission feels when you're going into second. I'm always kind of scared that I'll accidentally put it into reverse, even though that's kind of difficult. But, you know, just pushing it straight up, sometimes it just wants to go over into fourth, and so actually getting it into second gear is sometimes a little difficult, as you can see. And then, of course, there are times where I just overestimate the distance that I have until I actually have to stop. And so I'm, you know, getting in the middle of I'm in the middle of trying to do the shift, and then I realize, oh wait, I have to stop right here. And so I just end up stopping in neutral, or so I make it into town. I make it to the one stoplight in town. I manage not to stall out in the middle of town. I manage not to get pulled over. I get through town, and the truck is still running absolutely beautifully. Now, I didn't notice it at the time, but looking back at the footage, I do see my oil pressure gauge start to dip down a little bit. So 30 psi is the normal idle oil pressure, and then 62 psi is the normal oil pressure when under load. So it starts out fine, but then after we get through town, I didn't notice at the time, but looking back at the footage, it does seem to drop down a little bit. Now, the road out of town that's heading toward the town that the car show is in really brings out some of the flaws of the truck. This road has a lot of twists and turns and hills, and of course every road in Vermont is like that. But this road, with the speed limits and with, you know, how slow you should go with some of the turns, the truck just didn't seem to be happy in any gear. You know, fourth is too fast for all the all the curves, and you're going too slowly when you go up the hills. Third is just too much. The speeds are too low. The engine's just operating at a higher RPM. Basically, the truck with the gearing and how it's set up, it has specific speeds that it likes to travel down the road. Now, if you go just a bit too fast, it sounds like the engine's going to blow up. If you go just a bit slow, the engine starts bobbing down. For each gear, there is a very specific speed that it likes to travel. And with the speed limits and with the curves and with all the other stuff, it was just right in between two of those gears, right in between fourth and third. Now, the good news with that, I guess, is that I get to show off my 4-3 downshifting skills, which are quite good. A lot better than my 3-2 downshifts, but it was kind of annoying constantly having to shift back and forth between third and fourth. So then we get into the town that the car show is in, and now, unbeknownst to me, my oil pressure is basically zero. It's barely registering on the gauge. Now, that's kind of my fault for not looking at the oil pressure. I was looking at the temp gauge, and that was looking good, and the engine was still running good, sounding good. And we come to the first stop sign. Now, it's one of those roads that's like a Y intersection. So the road that I'm on just kind of goes down a hill, there's a little flat part, and then that road ends. And the road that you're going onto, it comes from over here and kind of goes like that. So, so instead of just looking off to the right to see what's coming from the right, you have to look way behind you to be able to see. And so that was a little difficult because the mirror just wasn't in quite the right position, and with the cab, the fact that there's no rear window in the cab, I was having to lean way over and try and stick my head out the passenger side window. And so I sat at that intersection for quite a while until finally the coast was clear. So in the second intersection in the town, I stall out when I'm trying to put it into first gear. I don't know whether that was the truck or me. I had the clutch pushed in all the way, but sometimes when you're trying to force it into first gear, it makes the truck bob just a little bit, and for whatever reason it stalled out. And then I was able to quickly restart it. It only took a little bit of effort. You can see here that the batteries are definitely struggling to turn over the truck. But I was able to get it started and able to continue on toward the show. So right around here, you hear this noise that sounds sort of like a knocking noise. Now, in the moment, I was like, oh, that sounds like it could be rod knock. I hope it's not the rods knocking. I hope it's, you know, my engine's not about to blow up. But then I was thinking, like, it doesn't sound like the engine. It sounds like it's coming from underneath me. It sounds like it's something in the drivetrain. And afterwards, I looked under there, like, the next day, I think, and I remember finding something. Something that was hanging low, or something that was loose or rattling or something. I remember finding something, and I was like, oh, that is probably the noise that I was hearing. But I can't, for the life of me, remember what exactly it was. But anyway, so that noise is nothing to worry about. What you should be worried about, though, is what happens next.